مفرجوني وحازوي رحيمي بشينو السريويو سات عدو قسمينا مملو عم تريح وروني هركي بقولي شنو انجليشويو موضوعنا الخبيقة ميتو من بوسريويو وبصر احنا مكملين ممليذا عم محذوذي بقولي شنو انجليشويو بربندي ذي هركي كتلي حبرو ميقرو تكتيو مو برتغال تكتيو بو تحلوفو بو حيود بو بارلمانتو دو حيود دو دوروفي اشمت كتيو باولو كاساكا وبربندي ذي كتلان احونو رحيمو سريويو مارونويو اتكتيو اشمي روني دومت وكو فولح اترسن وكو فلحي بوشو اولو لبنان ديلونويث وخاصة اتكتيو واحد كي باولو كاساكا بصحته تكميلة وفسقونو دائما ثم حيدوثو حمش حصر تشعو حمشي خدملي احنا من البينوثينا قد هو بوانجليشويو واحنا يتوتو مملويو لا تاخذ كمال انترفيو مقابله تسمينا بشكل صحافي او صفر يومي عم ححرينه هو متفق لنا احنا كنا احنا السنه مشغولين بشؤون كتنا جاوني اليسبوثو دمشي دمدن حوم الصعويو. Thank you for coming here to this talk. I will not call it an interview because it's not an interview, it's a talk between a conversation between us as on the issue, on the common issue in the Middle East in general and the Christian people in particular. I was just to introduce you for the audience of Suryoyo Sat, Mr. Paulo Casaca, member of the European Parliament from Portugal.
Good evening. It is for me a pleasure to be here with you discussing the future of the Greater Middle East and the way to defend and protect the interests of what is now one of the most important minorities, which is the Christian communities, which are the Christian communities, the several Christian communities. I think that most of the people in Europe do not really realize what is the situation in the Middle East. They really do not understand what is the plight of the Christian minorities as well as several others, and I think that we have to make a big effort of clarification of the issues on the table, and therefore this conversation is very useful.
Thank you for coming to this conversation. And you, Ronnie Domet, who is a student at the University of Uppsala in Sweden, but a dedicated Syrian Aramean soul. Can you present yourself?
Of course. Yeah, as you said, I'm Ronnie Domet, an Aramaic Maronite Syriac guy from Lebanon, and we are doing our best in different countries, actually, not only in Sweden, to always put the light on the Christian minorities in the Middle East and their rights. Either there are human rights in general or also ruling rights like in Lebanon, and right now we have a big issue with the presidential election. So thank you a lot for having us tonight here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, Mr. Casaca, you are, as I heard it before, a member of the board or the steering meeting of committee of resolution, UN resolution 1559. How come you got involved in this issue?
Well, it was really also a bit a surprise to me. I had the chance of meeting Dr. Walid Fares in the European Parliament a bit more than a couple of years ago, and I think I was absolutely fascinated by his personality, by his capacity to get the best of three different areas of the same culture, if you want, Lebanon, France and the United States. Very, very intelligent person that understands what most of the times in the West we have some difficulties to understand, which is the way that things are moving in Lebanon. And he was the one that opened my interest to know more about Lebanon. And it was at the time when I was also being very much involved, but I had been previously involved in Iran. Iran was perhaps the first country from the Greater Middle East that really interested me immensely, because I met refugees in the early 80s in Europe from Iran, and I was really taken aback from from a situation where people that were actually in very close societies to my own in Portugal, that were living under a political dictatorship of the Shah, as we did in Portugal. There could have been some differences, but anyway, there were dictatorships. But anyway, having a fairly open and modern society, from one day to the other, they were forced to come back to the Middle Ages. And I was, it made me a very big impression, and that it made me understand that things were a bit different from what I was believing up to that point. And I think that from Iran, and I got interested in several other areas of the Greater Middle East, and now I think I have I am a bit all over, following the situation, especially the Christian communities in Iraq and in Lebanon. Well, and I am deeply convinced that we must have a democratic, and when I say democratic, I mean democratic in a full sense. Democratic is not a dictatorship with a plebiscite. It is much more than that. The democracy is, to start with, the respect of the minority. More perhaps than the rule of majority, it is the respect of the minority. And I think this is the only way forward to the region.
Equivalence of ethnic groups and religions also.
Yeah, well, I think it's not possible to think of a democratic society without respect for minorities, ethnic or religious or both types of minorities, and this is true for Turkey, as it is true for any of the countries of the region.
What hides me a little bit is that the Middle East actually has been a place for, or a cradle, a place of cradle of mankind. You know, people coming and going through ages, and there always have been many conflicts, and this at the present time we have the conflict in Lebanon, we have conflicts in Iraq, we have conflict in Palestine, in Israel, and all of these conflicts are also belonging to both directly and indirectly in the religious issues. So do you think that there will be a possibility to come near each other and make progress in the near future in all this area? Is it possible, or are these conflicts so deep inside the culture of the area that it's impossible to come on and unite all over these religious groups and ethnic groups? What do you think, Mr. Ronnie?
Yes, and the countries that you mentioned is not the only ones with those problems. Even